Hey y'all. Oh, I almost spilled water all over myself. That would have been bad. Normally I would change in between these videos just to try to trick you guys, like I don't film them on the same day, but I couldn't be bothered right now, so film this on the same day, back to back actually. I lied. I took a break to watch Orange is the New Black. I just finished it actually. I had like 20 minutes left. Not gonna lie, I shed a tear. I thought this season was really good. I'm kind of obsessed with it. I'm not gonna go on for too long. I just want to get into the story. Just thought I'd tell you guys that I finished Orange is the New Black. As if you care. But I have another scary story for you guys. This one's actually part 2, so if you missed part 1, I will have that link down below. Make sure you watch that one first, because you're going to be really confused. I think the last 4 parts might be a little bit longer, so I honestly just want to get right into it because I have to stream in about 30 minutes. I don't have that much time. Not really sure why I decided to start filming this, but I really want to finish the story myself, so we're going to be late on the stream. Sorry, y'all. So this will be the finale to my parents' run a successful business in the black market. Part 5, Training. I took a deep breath and braced myself for what was about to come. We walked into the room. The shiny marble was so clean it was disturbing. The metal surgical instruments that hung from the walls were so bright it was blinding. So clean, so professional. I was momentarily distracted by the room's perfection. I quickly came to and looked over in the seat that had been occupied by Miri. "Where is she? Did you already kill her?" I said dryly, with anger starting to bubble up inside of me. "Miri? I hadn't realized you knew her name," he said with a smile. "Where is she?" I got louder. "She's back in her room. She's resting and recovering." "Resting and recovering? She's not at a day spa. You've hacked that poor woman into nothing. You think she's capable of rest? I want to see her." I pushed past him and I headed towards the metal doors that led me to the black hallway. The marble human cages. He grabbed my arm. "Now, dear, think very carefully about what you are doing. There's a certain way to go about this business. We mustn't form attachments. It's easier that way." I looked at him and down at his hand that was squeezing my arm so hard I could feel it bruising. He released me, but I was too frozen to move away from his grip over me. He continued. "I remember my first. I was just like you. I had an eagerness to help him. I put myself in this position. I thought I'd never be able to do what people do in this business, but..." He thought for a minute before he spoke again. He looked like a young boy trying to muster up the courage to ask a cheerleader to prom. "You see, this isn't something most people just jump right into. You have to know the right people, and you have to be trained." "Trained?" "Yes, trained. This is methodical, you see. You have to know the exact places to cut and how to keep infection and bleeding out under control. Well, unless that's what you're trying to do." He laughed, but swallowed it as soon as it came out. "Anyways, this will soon become second nature to you. You'll be able to disassociate yourself from them. They're just work, nothing more, nothing less." Nothing, I thought to myself. That was the first thing he said I agreed with. They were nothing. Nothing to people like him at least. He waited on my reply. "So what happens if I say no? The consequences you threatened me with earlier? You can't make me be a part of this." He smiled and it gave me chills. "You cannot say no. Mom and I will be lenient on the time we gave you to adjust, but that's it. You will do this. Maybe not in our time, but in time." "I won't do this, and you can't make me be one of you. I'm not this person. You're evil." "Watch your tone, Hannah. You will." I looked down at my feet, defeated, broken, confused. "But if I don't?" "Kids are the highest selling on the market, my dear." My stomach dropped to my feet and started to rotate like a loopy roller coaster about to derail. I felt like my body had lost contact with gravity and I was spinning. What had he just implied? That my life was at stake? He would do this to me for money? It took me a while to speak, like when you have Novocaine at the dentist and you feel like your jaw's about 15 pounds. The beginning was just slurred. "What?" he asked. I said, "Why? Why?" Hot tears streamed down my cheeks and splashed against my chest. "Hannah, I don't want it to resort to that. You have to know that. But your mom and I are not willing to go down for this, by anyone. If you do not participate, you are a threat. If you do participate, you're an accessory. We need insurance on you so that we're confident you won't talk. You don't want to be a prisoner in your own home, do you? With insurance on you, you can still carry on with your life. School, sleepovers, outings, nothing changes. We know you will not talk if you're guilty of our sins." I wept. I fell to the floor and I cried like I've never cried before. I started to hyperventilate. My lungs were refusing to take in any oxygen. He just stood there and watched me for a minute, like I was a jester putting on a performance, unamused. "Are you almost done?" he said dryly, crossing his arms. I stared down at the shiny floor as my tears danced on it. I finally looked up to him, like a puppy begging for food. What could I have even said? Nothing would change his predicament. His coldness convinced me of that. I had to be a willing participant. He reached his hand out to help me off the floor. I looked at his hand and then his eyes. I took his hand and he helped me up to my feet. As long as you are good to us, we will be nothing but good to you, my dear. Now, can we start? I stood in silence, my arms by my side and my head down, like a subservient dog. Today we will be removing eyes. I kept my head down and started to cry harder. My face was wet and sticky. My shirt was drenched at the collar. I looked up. Miri? I asked like a whimpering toddler. No. Miri needs recovery. She's still needed for other things. We can't be too greedy with her or we won't be able to get her for all she's worth. Miri will be with us for a while. We have a new patient, but Hannah, no more names. Names give them too much power. Nicknames are fine, I guess. I never really call them anything but whatever they're ordered for, he said as he trailed off deep into thought. If you want, I'll let you nickname this fellow, he asked as if I should be grateful. I said nothing, still looking down at my feet. Well then, shall I go grab him? Silence. Very good. I'll be right back. He disappeared into the black dungeon and I stood weeping. It felt like he was gone for only seconds. I dreaded what my future had in store for the next 24 hours. He came out with an average-built man, mid-40s, white, balding, glasses, duct tape across his mouth, hands tied behind his back. We made eye contact and he begged me to save him with his beautiful blue eyes. They were a painful blue. I looked back down at my feet, crying even harder. Dad slung the man into the chair and started to strap him in as he fought with all of his might. The key to gaining power, he struggled with the man, is to keep them hungry and keep them tired, he said as he dusted off his hands from strapping him down. Now, he caught his breath. The next step is a personal decision, depending on the patient and how you're feeling, to sedate or not to sedate. I looked up at him helplessly. Mr. Blue. He smiled as he looked at his eyes and then back to mine. He decided to kick me last night, between my legs. Good thing I'm not having any more kids, he laughed. I told him, Hannah, that it would be best for everyone if he didn't fight it. I told him, but he did, so he's lost his right to sedation. Mr. Blue wailed under his duct tape, salt water flooding his face. He knew what was to come. Dad, please don't do this. Let me stop you there, Hannah. If you continue to talk this way, there will be consequences. Would you like to trade places with Mr. Blue? There's a high price on him right now, but your eye color's pretty close. I stood in awe. Had my life changed so drastically in a day's time? How did it go so wrong? What had I done to deserve this? Maybe I wasn't being physically hurt, but mentally I was being just as tortured as them. Okay then, as I thought. Can we at least sedate him? I begged. Hannah, my mind has been made up. I do not waver with work. There's no gray area. I said no sedation once, and I will not repeat myself. Are we clear? I looked back down at my feet. Mr. Blue flailed the whole time my dad was scooping his eyes out. The noises, even through the duct tape, were haunting. I kept my face down, never once looking up. It felt like hours had gone by, and I was starting to get dizzy from adrenaline and nausea. Mr. Blue went silent. Shock had taken over and put him out of his misery, temporarily. When I looked up, Dad was wrapping gauze around his head, where only his sockets remained. Go grab me the record book. Now. I jumped from being startled. I quickly walked to grab the green book, and I brought it back. Now open it to the page that's marked with a post-it, he said, taking off his bloody gloves. There, he said as I flipped to the page he was referring to. I saw a list of names, orders, and prices, but these were different. They were not highlighted. That's what we have left to do today. I ran my eyes down the page. 6 more orders, and that was just today. I felt the blood wash out of my face. Next one I'm gonna let you take, he said, as he highlighted Mr. Blue's order. Part 6, my first time. Dad closed the book and walked over to return it to its place. He then disappeared into the black dungeon. When he came out, he was pushing a gurney. He wheeled it up to the side of the chair and lowered it to match Mr. Blue's height. He hoisted up the unconscious Mr. Blue up over his shoulder and slung him onto the gurney, hard. My dad was a big man. He stood 6'5" and well built. He was athletic. Always working out and doing local marathons, for publicity, I guess. Or maybe to meet new clients. I let the thought pass out of my brain just as quickly as it entered. My mom was fit too. She only stood at 5'6" though, average. I guess I took after her. I broke out of my distracted thoughts. He glanced at me for a moment, as if to read my face. He straightened Mr. Blue out and strapped him down tight. Mr. Blue was undisturbed. He looked like he was in a peaceful slumber. Slumber that he would wake up from eventually, only to find himself back in this living nightmare. Dad had inserted an IV and hooked him up to a saline and antibiotic drip before I even saw him pull out the needle. Fast. Accurate. He wheeled Mr. Blue back into the black room he would occupy until he was of no more use to my dad. I stood still, my knees feeling like they'd buckle at any moment, a slight wave in my stance. Dad returned, alone. "You're awfully quiet," he said as if he was surprised. "What do you want me to say?" I said back in defeat. "What would you like to say?" he shot back. It was a challenge. I looked at my finger, the one I had bled from the day before. Once again, I'd reopened the wound. "That really is a nasty habit you have, Han." I laughed. At first a small chuckle, but it grew into a hysterical, belly-aching laugh. I even bent over and smacked my knee. I laughed until tears streamed from my eyes. Dad just stood there in silence, waiting on me to explain myself. "Me? I have a nasty habit?" I laughed as I put my hand on my chest. "That's fucking laughable now, isn't it, Pops?" I snapped. He just stood there, just listening. "I'll tell you what's a nasty habit," I said with a sneer as I walked towards him. I walked right up to him, so close I could feel hot air coming out of his nostrils as he towered over me like an awkward giraffe. "You are the most disturbed person I know. Out of all of the horror movies I've watched, all of the sadistic crime novels I've read, of all the fucked up shit I've ever heard about, you are the sickest. You are the devil." I didn't wait for a response. "But I have a nasty habit? For fuck's sake," I yelled. Was I on a hidden camera show? This was absurd. Someone was gonna pop out with a camera and tell me they got me good. That it was a sick prank, a stupid joke that would initially piss me off, but I'd laugh about it one day. But no cameraman ever came. My dad just stood there, just watching me pace the room. "Say something," I screamed. Nothing. I didn't know what was worse, the threats he had been shoving down my throat all day, or the silence. At least with the threats, I knew where his head was at, but this scared me even more. I walked for the door to leave the white room. "I do have feelings. I'm not all evil like you think I am. There are things I care about. People." He trailed off. I stopped in my tracks, my back to him. "You see, there are two people that live inside of me," he said as he walked towards me. I whipped around so fast, almost losing my balance. "A good versus evil, if you will." He smiled and clasped his hands in front of him. "There's the me I allow others to see, and there's the me that I allow to do this work," he said as he motioned his hands around the room. I always knew there was evil inside of me, deep down, like a parasite. You couldn't see it from the surface, and no one had proof, but it was there, lurking beneath, sinking its teeth into my tissue, dancing with my DNA, living and thriving and growing. He had walked right up to me now, towering over me once more. "You see, there's a sickness in me, and by your standards, one could make that assumption that I do have a sick habit, a habit that started out as a means for finance but quickly festered into a passion," he smiled. He stood facing me for a while. I just stood like a statue. Even my breathing was labored. He walked back towards the black hallway, and I tried to get my brain to react with my body. I was frozen. Before I could muster up the brain cells to make my body mine again, he had returned. A girl. Hands tied behind her back, duct tape across her mouth. Her long ponytail, a bright yellow, her skin tanned, big blue eyes, wet with tears. He threw her into the chair, and as she fought, he strapped her down. "Hannah, I believe you two have met," he said. She screamed something non-interpretable through the silver slab of stick on her face, eyes bursting with hot tears. "It's true. I knew her. She was an old friend. A friend I had a falling out with a few years ago. She had stolen a necklace from me that my grandmother gave me before she passed. I never did get it back." He reached down her collared shirt and came up with the locket clutched between his fingers. "Is this any incentive?" he asked. "My locket!" I screeched as I ran towards the chair. I unfastened the locket and held it in my hand, staring at it. I looked back down at her, her eyes full of regret, the same shade of blue I had just seen moments ago. "What is her order?" I asked him. He smiled, like a dad watching his kid ride a bike without training wheels for the first time. Proud. "Brace yourself for this one, kid. This won't be a quick one." I look at him in confusion. "Meaning what?" I asked. "Her skin," he said as a matter of factly. "Like her arm or something?" I asked. "No," he said with amusement. "Our client has ordered a skin suit." Silence. "But don't worry, I won't make you take this one alone. You aren't qualified for a task like this. But what better time to learn?" he said as he approached me. "Oh, and Hannah, you were right." "About what?" I asked. He came close, leaned down, and whispered into my ear, "I am the devil." Part 7. Old Friends. Alyssa Hinkle was my longtime friend. We met in kindergarten and instantly became partners in crime, always talking in class, always getting separated. We were thick as thieves. She only lived 4 miles away, so we were always together, when we were at school and when we weren't. Alyssa's family was middle class, but lower middle class, but that didn't bother me at all. Mom had warned me that people like that usually have a motive to hang around, but that didn't make sense to me as a kid. Alyssa always preferred to come to the house though. She called it the palace. We would play in the backyard on the jungle gym, or we'd play some kind of pretend game and run through the house. One time we got busted for playing dress up in Mom's clothes and heels. Alyssa's idea. She had a power over me that no one else did, an influence. She could suggest an idea that I knew was terrible, but I would never fight it. I always went along. A bad influence. About 5 years into the friendship, I started to realize just how different we were. She became sexually aware and started drinking, occasionally stealing green oval pills from her mom and popping them like candy. Once I took one too, but I didn't like how it made me feel. I started getting in trouble more and eventually was banned from hanging out with her, but I couldn't stop. So we snuck around and hung out when my parents were working, which was a lot. I just couldn't quit her, no matter how mean or how bad she influenced me. She was addicted to pills, and I was addicted to her. I realized quickly I had fallen in love with her. One time we made out after we had a few too many wine coolers. To her it was just fun and something to do. To me it was passionate and meaningful. I found myself always wanting to get her drunk again just to relive that moment. Once I had made a pass at her sober. "What the fuck, Hannah?" she shot. "You're my best friend, but I like guys," she said with a look in her eyes like she felt sorry for me. But I loved her. The last time we hung out, we were in my room listening to Michael Jackson and trying our best to moonwalk. She tripped and fell, her wool socks on the hardwood slipping right from under her. She fell hard. "Shit!" she screamed. I waited on her reaction to see what level of pain she was in. Then she laughed. So did I. I reached to help her, and as she got up, out of her pocket fell a heart earring I had misplaced earlier that day. I had them on and took them off for a shower, and when I returned they were gone. I figured Potato had jumped up there and knocked them off, or that I'd just forgotten where I placed them. It never occurred to me that anyone might have taken them. Our eyes met. "You took them?" I asked, confused. We had literally looked for them for over 30 minutes together. "Oh, I found them. I forgot to tell you," she said with excitement as she picked one off the floor and the other from her pocket. She placed them in my hand. "I found them while you were in the kitchen, and I put them in my pocket so I didn't lose them." Against my better judgment, I made myself believe her. But there was always that thought in the back of my mind that she stole them. The feeling of betrayal floating around somewhere in the back of my head. I fell off for a while, but I would let it go. I could feel our dynamic starting to change. Ever since I made a pass at her, it was different. She left a couple hours later, after we made some grilled cheese sandwiches and had our grape soda while watching a sappy soap opera, our favorite pastime. She had left earlier than she was going to. I didn't fight it. I still had that off feeling. The next day, I was getting ready for church. I went to grab my locket from my jewelry box that my grandmother had given to me a few months ago on her deathbed. Cancer of the lungs, a torturous death, a slow burn. I wore it almost every day. I took such good care of it that I took it off at night or in the shower as to not break or tarnish it. I searched through the box and no locket. I searched my bed, my nightstand, my bathroom, my fluffy rug that took up half my floor, under the dresser. No locket. I ran into my parents' room with anxiety starting to build. "Have you seen my locket?" I shrieked, speaking to no one in particular. "Where did you last have it?" Mom said. "My jewelry box, that's where it always is," I said. "I haven't seen it, sweetie. I'll come help you look," she said. I ran back to my room, starting to panic, tears starting to soak my face. Sweetie, we'll find it. It couldn't have gone far. Don't cry, my mom said. We looked for almost an hour, to no avail. Could you have left it in your locker at school, Han? She asked. No, it was here. It was here. I pointed to the jewelry box. I took it off when I showered yesterday afternoon, and I put it here. I never put it back on, I said as a feeling of dread started to wash over me. Surely not. Alyssa? She had taken my earrings. Could she have snatched the locket? She wouldn't. I tried to shake the thought out of my head. She knew how much that locket meant to me. My grandmother was my best friend. I sat on the edge of my bed, sadness consuming me. Do you want to stay home from church, sweetie? Mom asked in a worried voice. I stayed home. The next day on the bus, I had rehearsed what I was going to say to Alyssa. I got to school and went to my locker to get my books for the day. I saw Alyssa across the hall talking with her cheerleader friends, laughing and whispering about something. I shut my locker and I walked towards her, the girls hushing as I got close. Where is it? I shot, the whole rehearsed speech flying out of the window. She laughed and looked around the group, waiting on them to laugh and judge me. Where's what? My locket, my grandma's locket. You took it, just like you took my earrings, I shot back angrily. I didn't take your locket, and the heart earrings you claim I took are in your ears. I realized she had now made me look like a fool. I was wearing those earrings. I always did. They were from Greece, and my dad had brought them back from his conference. Real diamonds, Swiss blue. You took them Saturday. They fell out of your pocket and I caught you. Or do you not remember? I said with my face squishing up. She looked around the group and they all exchanged looks, as if to say, look how crazy this girl is. Listen, Hannah, just because I don't want to be your girlfriend doesn't mean you can go around accusing me of stealing stuff you clearly still have. The girls broke into oohs and ahs. My face turned red. It felt hot. The girls started laughing, and it grew louder and louder. I turned around and ran off. The rest of the day, people were calling me lesbo. In middle school, rumors were bad, but this kind of rumor, I guess it wasn't a rumor. I got home from a long day of being bullied and screamed into a pillow. My dad walked into my room. What's going on, kid? Are you all right? He asked. I hate her. I freaking hate her. I know she took my locket just like she took my earrings, and now this, I yelled like he had any idea what I was talking about. Who? Did someone hurt you? I paused, knowing I was about to tell him I'd been sneaking around with Alyssa, knowing he would say, I told you so. I didn't care. I had to get it out. I told him everything. The sneaking, the kiss, the rejection, the earrings, the locket, the locker incident, the bullying. By the time I got done talking, I realized I had just exposed myself in the one secret I had tried to keep from everyone. He sat in silence for a moment. Are you sure she took Rand's locket? He asked. Positive, I said with tears in my eyes. Well, what do you intend to do about it? What can I do? I said, wiping a tear with the back of my sleeve. You can get revenge, and then we can get it back, he said as he got up and walked towards the door. But how? I asked helplessly. We'll figure it out. Don't let that girl bully you either. You stand up for yourself. I always knew she was bad news. You fight back. You understand me? I nodded. He walked out of the room. Alyssa became my tormentor that year. She ran a hate Hannah group that bullied me relentlessly. I had things thrown at or on me all the time. Lesbo written on my locker in permanent marker at least every other week. I became a hermit, save for a few friends I had from church. I was alone. I started to hate my life. Alyssa went from being my best friend to someone I daydreamed about hurting, about getting even with, like my dad said. All I needed was my chance. Alyssa screamed a muffled noise, clearly pleading for help. I snapped out of my thoughts. Dad had an instrument in his hand and it reflected light into my eyes, blinding me for a brief second. This is what we'll start with, he said, showing me the surgical instrument that he would use to fillet my old friend. Now, as much as I would like her to be awake for this, it would be hard on the ears, with her wailing and all. So I have a suggestion, he said with a smile. I waited. Since little Hinkle decided to do such a number on your life, I think I might have something that could allow her to feel your pain, silently. What does that mean? I asked. Have you ever heard of the date rape drug? Yeah, Mom made me watch that documentary. And she had. She wanted me to be aware of the dangers of partying and taking drinks from strangers. Well, this is the pharmaceutical version of that, he said. I stood in silence. Do you understand what I'm implying here? He asked. That she'll feel everything we do to her, but she won't be able to move or speak? I asked. He smiled. And how do you feel about that? He asked in a concerned tone. I think that's more than this bitch deserves. I spat towards her direction. She closed her eyes and looked down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Shall we start already?" I asked. "My time has come." Part 8. The New Me. Dad handed me a bundle of blue plastic. It was an apron. Inside of it was a pair of long gloves that looked like they were used to do dishes, shoe covers, a face shield, and a face mask. "This will be very messy," he said. I started to dress in all of my protective wear, and as I did, he went and retrieved something that looked like a generator attached to a long, clear hose. He brought it back and placed it by the stand of the chair. After putting that down, he got a plastic tarp and laid it, as best as he could, around the chair bottom. Alyssa fought. Against her shackles she shook and thrashed. She wailed a muffled, pathetic noise. I stared at her, feeling nothing. Dad walked over to her, administering something in her IV. "Soon we will unshackle her. She won't be able to fight much longer," he said as he discarded the syringe. Alyssa slowly lost her ability to move, and then, in an instant, she was paralyzed. Dad moved the shackles and the tape from her mouth. Blood poured out of her mouth from where she had bit into her tongue and cheeks, her eyes open and looking around. She couldn't speak, but her eyes could. I leaned down to her. "I bet you're sorry now, huh?" Tears streamed down her still face. Dad called me over to examine the hose that he had in his hand. "Now, this is a very tricky operation we're about to do, so I'll be doing the slicing," he smiled. "What I would like you to do is hold this hose. The hose will suction most of the blood as we go. Not all of it, of course, but this hose will make everything a lot less messy. The typical surgeon suction isn't very big. So soon into the business, I made this one. It has worked wonders for me and saves us so much time during cleanup. Do you understand?" I shook my head. "So as we go along, you will follow me, somewhat closely, and suction as I go. Careful not to get too close to the skin. You'll get the hang of it." He looked at me proud. "So, where do you even start? The fingers?" No. The hands and feet will not be of any use to us for this. We'll start at the wrists. Think of it like the arms are a long-sleeve shirt and the legs are pants. A skin suit." "Will this client, wear her?" I asked. "Well, I assume so, but the skin will eventually dry up, so I'm not sure how much wear the client can actually get out of it before it just becomes decoration. Honestly, it's of no matter for me. I get the money, and what the client decides to do with their purchases are entirely up to them. I don't ask questions. I only supply the request. Are you ready to go?" I shook my head yes. He grabbed an instrument from the Mayo stand and slit around her wrists. The blood immediately started gushing. I grabbed the hose and tried to get as much as I could, but nothing could have prepared me for this much blood. He made different incisions around the wrists, and soon he was peeling the skin back. The skin peeled back almost effortlessly. I was in awe at how it slid as he pulled. I thought of a butter knife slicing into room temperature butter. Smooth. As I watched in amazement, I realized how easy it was. The skin isn't anchored down by anything really, but I guess one doesn't know that until they're watching a live skinning. I followed him around with the hose everywhere he went. Blood squirting, running, oozing at every inch of Alyssa's body. When we got to the legs, I looked at her eyes, soaked in blood. The blue and red intertwined in intricate lines and swirls. Still, I felt nothing. Maybe I could do this. Had he awakened something inside of me that I never knew lived there? After about 45 minutes, we had successfully removed Alyssa's skin, save for the feet and hands. Dad's last project was her face. I had done well mostly through the entire thing, until he pulled her face off like a spa mask. I threw up. He placed the skin in a large ice chest and closed it. "Cleanup is what I hate the most," he said, like he was talking to a child about their toys. He slid the tarp out into a large square, and together we put Alyssa's body into it. He wrapped her up tight and tied the middle with some bungee cords. "Where will you put her?" I asked. Here's the kicker. Just as someone ordered her skin, I had a regular inquiry about something I would be doing with the body afterwards. He smiled. "And," I said, taking off my apron and gloves, blood absolutely everywhere. "And she will be sold as well, just like this. Now help me get her into the freezer." He removed the skin suit from the ice chest and placed it on a separate tarp on the floor. "Quickly," he said. We picked her up and dropped her in the ice chest. He laid the other tarp on top of her and then placed the skin suit on top of it, and he closed it. "So now that you've had a taste, what do you think?" I thought a million things. How could this be real? Why was there a market for this? Had I really just assisted in Alyssa's death? Could I really keep doing this? Did I enjoy it? Was I a bad person? How would my life turn out? I walked closer to him and I looked him in the eyes. I think I'm gonna like this job just fine. He smiled at me, and I smiled at him, and we walked to the black dungeon to retrieve our next order. Holy Jesus. Okay, I was not expecting the ending of that. I know I said in the last video that it was like everything I could have wanted and more, like I was expecting everything. I don't know, for some reason I didn't think she would get involved. I thought maybe the parents would get caught. I don't know what I thought. This honestly has to be one of the most well-written stories that I've ever read on this channel. And I'm gonna say it for the 10 millionth time, I don't know how you people do this. I don't know how you write these stories. They're absolutely amazing. Again, I will have the author link down below. You guys should totally check out more of their stories. I honestly can't even imagine what else they've written if they were able to write this beauty. This is definitely gonna be one of the best stories that I ever read on this channel, and I know that for a fact. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any other stories that you want me to read, please send them to me. I'm starting to get these videos out more often, and I hope you guys are enjoying that as well. I know a lot of you missed the series, and honestly I missed it as well. Like, this shit is insane. I don't understand. I don't understand. I'm gonna go stream now. I'll have my Twitch channel link down below if you guys ever want to tune into them, but I have to go. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Before that, I have to chug 14 gallons of water and try to attempt to get my voice back because this shit is gone. But you know what? I'm just a YouTube grinder, just a grindy YouTuber. Just gotta get those YouTube vids grinded, and I hate myself. Bye.